What do you think about this, Nike? What do you think about rewards in the game?
They're pretty bad in EOD.
Yeah.
Unless you're... like, the EOD rewards are entirely based around crafting Arena legendaries. And if you don't want any more... Like, I have all the Arena legendaries I want already. So for me, like, the rewards are not so hot. But if I was the type of person that was going to make every single one of them, like, what is it, all 16, then the EOD would probably feel pretty rewarding.
Okay.
But yeah, it's too heavily skewed towards the Arena legendaries. Like, Imperial favors are great up until you don't want to make any more Arena legendaries. Then they are negative reward. Well, not negative, but they're 0.
Do you think that this is the type of rewards they want to sort of lean into with Ender Dragons and with Guild Wars 2? Because do you think that they went too far, or rather, do you think that they went too far with stuff like Drizzlewood Coast and Dragonfall?
Yeah, I think it could be that they've hit like a saturation point. Like, I don't have like their internal numbers or whatever, but it could very well be they feel they've hit a saturation point with materials. We're giving you more T5 wood, you know, which is essentially what they give. Like, Mithril and T5 wood is like what you get from un-ID'd bags for the most part, and ectos. They might feel that, you know, like, dumping even more of those into the economy isn't necessarily the best outcome.
Yeah. What do you think they would do about this? Because
they can't add raw gold, obviously, because that detracts from the business model, like you were saying the other day. That's correct. Yeah. And they can't just keep adding T5 wood, or aka un-ID'd bags.
What do you think would happen if they nerfed rewards in the game? How much of a bloodbath? How much of a bloodbath would it be?
Can't put the genie back in the bottle, unfortunately.
Because this is something that this is where the segue comes in. Because my concern here is that a lot of challenging content in the game is way less rewarding than very, very easy content in the game that kind of requires no effort, right? Like, there was a good post about this a while back. If you compare, even if you look at something like Fractals compared to Drizzlewood, it's actually very unfavorable towards Fractals. Fractals, you're going to need to have Ascended gear. You're going to have to learn how the Fractals work and beat the bosses. And Tier 4 Fractals are not actually... They're not that hard. But if you're a new player, they are quite hard. You know, I've been doing some... Yeah, that's right, guys. I've been doing some undercover pugging on an alt account recently. And man! Siren's Reef, guys... Not good, okay? Oh boy, that's Fractal.
An unplayable Fractal.
Yeah, that Fractal is tough, okay, with pugs. And by the way, I was playing DPS. I specifically played DPS, not a support build. Yeah, sure, if I play support, I can probably carry people because I'm obviously a pretty experienced player. But I was playing DPS very specifically. More specifically, I was playing Scourge. No surprises there, right? But yeah, it was really, really tough because players were having problems with it. Same thing with stuff like a Twilight Oasis, and definitely the CMs. If you join like low kill proof, the CM runs, it's not smooth. Okay, there are definitely some issues there. Okay, that you might not get it first try or even after like 2 or 3 tries even. So you have to do all of that. And the rewards are very comparable in terms of the liquidity. And you might go, well, that's all right, because you get loads of Ascended gear from Fractals, and you get loads of, you know, you get like a cool skin. You get the Omega CM skins, the Unstable Fractal Essence. Whoa, crazy. And that's semi-true. You do get a lot of cool exclusive rewards from this, and obviously Ascended gear has an account value attached to that. But I don't think that players tend to interface with things on the account value level. I think that players are very gold-oriented because a lot of the things in the game, the easiest way to get it is by farming gold, right? You just get your gold, you buy your legendary from the trading post, or you buy the materials from the trading post, and all the account value stuff ends up not being as valuable to players because they have Ascended gear. They don't really want it anymore. Not everyone is a sweaty nerd who wants to have like 1 million Ascended sets and 1 million different builds. A lot of players just want to unlock all the cosmetics or stuff from the gem store, right? They might want to go ahead and buy Living Story or buy a VIP pass or something like that. Or hell, maybe they want the contracts, right? They want to get the bank contract, stuff like that. So I think you end up in this really weird situation where, because hard content is less rewarding than easy content, Drizzlewood compared to Fractals, or definitely raids, by the way. Like raids, if you're a new raider, oh boy, your gold per hour is gonna be like less than 5. It's gonna be worse than World versus World, guys. Okay, and that's saying a lot, because your World versus World liquid gold per hour is not good. Raids might even be worse. It might even be negative. You'll spend food and not get anything in return if you don't kill it. And I think this is a bit of a problem, because I think that the incentive for a lot of players to learn to learn this content and actually get into it isn't really there. And even though there are some really cool things you can get, like legendary armor, and if once you get good at raids, they actually do become rewarding, even in the gold per hour. Since if you can do like a decent clear, like around 3 hours or so, you'll get pretty good gold per hour from that. That's not bad at all. The problem is that to get to that step, you're going to have to like wade through like a river of agony while you eventually get a consistent group together. So I wonder how ArenaNet can actually handle this. Like, what do they do here to prevent this from happening? Like, and I think this is the case everywhere. It's like, it's Fractals, I think, suffer from this to an extent, at least tier 4s. Strike missions probably do as well if you're learning the game. Definitely raids do. And I think that's a problem. I think that harder content, it shouldn't be mandatory, obviously, but I think that it should absolutely reward the player for the effort. Like, more effort should be more reward, right? That kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense, but it's hard to nerf the rewards in Drizzlewood without people getting mad. But really, I think it might not be like the biggest deal in terms of hurting the economy if you make like a raid go from like the base 2 gold to make it like base 4 gold. Like that does add a lot of gold into the economy, but not that much. Because it's still a weekly thing. Like, it's not a huge deal. I don't think, anyway.
Yeah, in general, I think it is... it's not a good idea to nerf stuff. Not too hard, anyway. Because, I mean, look, we already saw what happened when there was a relatively small nerf to Fractal CM rewards. Didn't go down very well, as you can tell. And that was obviously a very small segment of the community was affected. If Drizzlewood Coast got nerfed... the game could end, right? Guild Wars 2 might explode with the outrage that will be generated from that. So maybe not the biggest brain idea in the entire universe to do something like that. But yeah, I don't know. Like, what do you think would happen how good would the raid rewards have to be for players to consider it worth the effort? That's kind of the question here. Like, how good would it have to be?
If you don't consider legendary armor worth the effort, you're not going to raid.
Ooh.
Period.
But don't you think
legendary armor is the thing? Like, the rewards in raids is legendary armor. The whole problem of raids not being very good gold, that's for players who have already gotten the legendary armor from raids. Like, for me, I don't need legendary armor anymore. I've got all 3. So for me, I care about the gold, but until the very minute I made my 3rd armor set, like, the gold was 100% irrelevant to me, and all that mattered was getting that 3rd set of armor.
I think there is a thing, though, that you kind of need gold to get the legendary armor as well, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what is it for 3 sets, 750 Li? Like, 750 Li, by the time you've gotten that, just from the raid bosses, you've probably made, like, 2,000 gold. So, that's enough to make 3 sets of armor.
I guess so. I guess. But I think the other thing here is kind of replayability, and maybe this would be less of an issue if there were like loads of fresh players constantly coming into the game and trying raids, I guess. But I think that the raids should be like really good to repeat as well, because it kind of keeps the scene alive, right? Like, otherwise people get their legendary armor and they just quit. And I think you pointed this out again actually the other day, is that once legendary armor actually existed, right, people stopped raiding, right? Like, that was, they got the loot and then they stopped playing. Which,
well, it's why all the POF raids have significantly worse and continue to have significantly worse play rates than the HOT raids.
Yeah.
Still. Like, more people do Wing 4 or whatever than probably do 5, 6, and 7 combined on a weekly basis. And it's not because 5, 6, and 7 are harder. 5 is, arguably, but the others aren't. But the lion's share of the clears are for LI, for the purpose of making armor.
Yeah. And I guess they tried to address that by having the conversion, right? So you can convert the divinations into insights, so that can accelerate. And hey, you can even do strikes, right? And to get some insights now, and probably with the CMs too. But yeah, I think that there kind of needs to be something that causes you to want to continuously play the content as well. I think that's, in a way, just a bit of the nature of an MMO. You got to keep coming back. And I do think that if a player is going, okay, right, I want to play raids, but they're going to like, man, it's going to cost me loads of gold to get into it, and then it's going to tank my gold per hour as well, and, I just want to farm my gold and, get some legendaries, I want to get my gear right, I want to buy whatever I want to buy. I think that does create a bit of a barrier there, right? Like, in addition to the barriers we talked about, when it comes to balance like that, and like the knowledge gap that you have to overcome to actually make a group being quite high, then it's like, well, you're also going to get punished, right, for trying to get better at the game, like for trying to actually get in there and progress. The game is going to say, well, you know what? You don't even get a payoff. In fact, well, you're going to probably lose gold even, like when you start learning it. Do you think that's a problem?
I don't know. It's definitely, I don't know. For me, like, progression is super fun, and you definitely are not making good gold per hour during progression. So, for me, I'd say it's a feature, not a bug necessarily. But I think the type of player who like wants best in slot gear is going to be more or less willing to eat the upfront cost.
Yeah.
Again, I care about the gold per hour because that's all I can get from raids besides the fun of it.
I think a lot of players do care about the gold per hour, even if they're not in raids. I think they care about both. I think they obviously they want legendary armor, but they also want to make sure that they're farming gold efficiently at the same time. They don't want to be having those like really high costs to start getting into this content. And I think that in general, having these kind of barriers up it's not ideal. It's not conducive to actually building the scene. I don't know. I don't feel that confident to say this yet, but to me, it doesn't feel like the strike take-up with EOD is that great. I don't think people are like frenzied about them like fractals, right? People go crazy over fractals because of all the gold per hour, but from what I can see, it doesn't look like there's this like massive strike community forming, and that worries me. And I think a big part of that is because I don't think there's a crazy incentive for players to farm them or continuously do them because they don't really generate you a lot of currency, right? They don't have that element of like farming attached to them.
The Ice Brood ones are pretty good. The thing that we haven't seen, I mean, we don't necessarily know what the CM rewards are going to look like. If I had to guess, they're probably going to be comparable to a raid. Killing a CM strike is going to be like comparable to killing a raid boss in terms of reward. And the Harvest Temple might be like double that because it's already sort of comparable to killing a raid boss in terms of reward. Plus, right now we only get the green shards, and we're going to get the green crystals, and that vendor is going to have all different stuff. Potentially something similar to like the Icebrood Saga, where we can convert stuff to gold, like through like buying like trophy shipments or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but I would guess just conservatively it's going to be similar to killing a raid boss, especially since you're getting an LI. It's also for armor crafters. It's another, you can go do the quote unquote easy CMs every week for 2 more LI.
Yeah, it'll be pretty interesting to see what actually ends up coming up with that, like how those rewards are going to look, how replayable they're going to be. I think they are going to be repeatable. I don't think they'll make the same mistake as last time, where they're just not repeatable whatsoever. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we shall see.
I assume they're hopefully going to be daily, but
yeah, I just think that I mean, they're not going to be daily though. It's going to be weekly at best because the strikes are, the strikes right now are weekly, not daily. Maybe there'll be like a week, a daily
the ice
CM
brewed
thing.
ones are daily, so it just seems weird to.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they didn't want to creep the rewards too much. Like, imagine in the future when there's like 50 strikes you can do. But I mean, maybe that's good. Maybe it's good that farming strikes will be like really good gold for players. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think that the real big problem here is exactly what you mentioned earlier, right? Like, I think it's really hard for ArenaNet to make the game rewarding, because if they make the game too rewarding, it affects their bottom line, right? And this is a company, they're here to make money, right? They need to make sure their game is, as profitable as possible, right? Essentially. And if they give everything away in the game for just playing the game, then, hate to say it, guys, less people are going to buy gems, right? And they don't want that. They want people to buy gems, to buy gold, right? To buy the in-game cash shop stuff, right? Whatever, right? Like, people need to do that. That's a part of the way the game works. So they can't be too generous. And I think in a lot of ways, they probably have been too generous. I would love to know the percentage of liquid gold that comes into the game because of fractal encryptions, right? And like selling all the junk there. It's gotta be massive. Like, it might even be... Is there a bigger source of liquidity, of liquid gold in the game than that? I don't think so.
Not anymore, though.
Yeah. You mean
Bauble
dungeons,
Farm.
right? Oh, Ball Farm. Yeah.
When Bauble Farm is up in VB, like, the amount of liquid gold coming into the economy is noticeable.
Yeah. PvP is okay, but it's not that good, actually. It's surprisingly not as good as you might think. I guess you can infinitely grind PvP and do ATs. Like, daily AT is really good gold per hour, but obviously not a lot of people can really access that, so it's not too bad for the economy. But yeah, ArenaNet do not want the economy to inflate. They want the economy to be very, very stable and healthy. Otherwise, it's really bad for them, to be honest. They can't really allow that to happen. But yeah. Oh, no. It's a tough meme. It's a very, very tough meme indeed. But no, I do think that they need to look at actually making sure that this content is very heavily rewarding for players, because, players are reward-driven. They have their goals in the game. They want to obtain various rewards. And if content isn't going to help them do that, then realistically, they aren't going to engage with that content very much, or they just won't. I think this will always be a bit of a problem with the reward structure and the kind of the accessibility of the game in a way. It's like another barrier that players have to kind of get over. Like the idea that, okay, I'm going to have to mentally eat the fact that I'm not going to get rewarded as much for doing this, and I'm going to, in a way, play the game for this abstract concept of something down the line, as opposed to something like a little bit more immediate. And that's a part of raid progression, I guess. So there's always going to be a little bit of that you're going to have to probably wipe a little bit before you can actually get the reward out at the end. But I think that it's just a bit more excessive in Guild Wars 2 because of the way the rewards are structured. Like, everything is very much linked to gold. If something doesn't give, you gold, or like something you can sell, right? Some materials that you can sell in some way to get money or do something, it will be perceived as extremely non-rewarding. It doesn't mean that it is, because your account value might be going up a lot, and you might be saving gold by not having to buy ascended gear, for example, or, getting legendary armor, which is like a very intrinsically valuable thing, just in the context of the game. But, I don't know. It's a bit weird. Maybe I'm overanalyzing this entire thing, and it's like, well, I'm trying to figure out how we can save raids. How can we make raids not die? But I'm not gonna lie, I really want strike missions to work, because I view strike missions as the kind of the key, right, to endgame PvE in Guild Wars 2. If strike missions fail and end up being not very popular and have low play rates, then I think realistically endgame PvE in Guild Wars 2 is kind of doomed, right? I don't really see them trying again. I feel like strikes was their attempt to, to say, okay, right, we're gonna try this and see if it works. But if it doesn't work, then they may not invest in endgame PvE much. No.
Yeah, I feel like they'll stick with strikes even as their method, even if they're not the most popular thing, just because they have to have some aspirational content, or else, I mean, it would, if they didn't, it would be bad. That would be really bad for the perception of the health of the game.
Would it be bad?
If they were like, I mean, if they didn't replace it with anything else, if they were like, yeah, strikes didn't really work, so we're going to stop developing them and we're just going to do story and open world. I mean, that would be the end for a lot of people.
Okay.
I think that they most likely they would either iterate on strikes or they would, come up with something new. But they wouldn't. They can't just abandon all sort of aspirational content.
What do you think are the biggest things stopping players from getting into endgame PvE? I'm kind of I'm ready for the answer on this.
Well, step 1, get 6 matching runes. That's a barrier. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's part of getting into aspirational content is developing the aspiration. Mm-hmm. I think you have to know it's there, and you have to want it.
You know what?
When there's a will, there's a way. Once you want it bad enough, you'll get it. That's what I've been saying for a while.
Just in case this ends up on YouTube, which it might. YouTube friends, I want you, if you don't play endgame PvE, tell me why you don't. And any answer is fine, by the way. If you go, oh, I'm just not into it, that's a completely fair answer. But I'm just really curious. I'm really curious about the players who do want to get in, but they just don't know how. Because this is my suspicion, and maybe this is copium, but my suspicion is that a lot of players would actually really like to play endgame PvE. They're just not really sure how to crack that nut, how to begin the process of getting into it. Like, that's my personal suspicion. Maybe I'm completely wrong there, but whenever I speak with players, they always go like, oh man, I would love to do raids, but I'm a little intimidated. I don't really know where to start. Like, how do I go about this process? How do I get into a group, right? Like, how do I know that my build is good, right? Like, all this stuff. That seems to be the answer I get a lot of the time. Maybe my sample size is just terrible. It's stupid. But, I don't know. I just have this... I have this hunch that there are a bunch of just barriers that players either are experiencing, or it's a perceived barrier. I think it can definitely be a perceived barrier. It could be a gold per hour barrier, like a reward barrier. It's not worth the incentive. It's not worth it. It's high effort, right, to get into this stuff. They're worried about toxicity. I just want to know, like, what are the ones that we can attack? Because obviously we can't really do much about toxicity. People are going to be dickheads online. That's kind of inevitable, really, in any kind of content with a fail state. But I'm just thinking,
honestly,
what are the ones we can attack, right, as the community, or what can we fix?
I mean, so I've been saying for a while, and this is where I sort of kind of differ with you and Sneb, is that I think that our part is by making easy to find, easy to understand guides for builds, for the content itself, and all of that. Once we've done that, once we've created the guides and made them easy to find, made them easy to understand, created the guides for the bosses and made them easy to find, easy to understand, created grouping systems in our communities to make getting into groups easier. We've done our part. The idea of convincing people to start raiding in the first place, that is up to ArenaNet to solve. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it is not. We have neither you or I have neither the carrot nor the stick. Mm-hmm. We cannot make people who don't want to raid. That's ArenaNet's job, and if they don't do it, then there's nothing we can do besides, lowering the barrier by making good guides and making grouping systems. But lowering the barrier, you'll never get it to 0, and you'll never get someone to step over it if they're not interested in it in the first place. And it's ArenaNet's job to make them interested in the first place.
Mm. Okay, here. What do you think adding high rolls to stuff makes people want to do stuff?
For sure.
In terms of the carrot?
Chat Garant isn't popular because the rewards are good. If we're going strictly on a gold per hour basis, people would just skip Chat Garant and do AB. Mm. They would show up. They wouldn't even show. They'd go from the pinata, do something else, and then show up at AB and skip Chat Garant.
Because what I'm talking about, what if they added like a actually rare infusion to raids and strike missions? Do you think they could do that?
Should.
Is that within budget, do you think, for something they could potentially add?
Yeah, because stuff like that doesn't... if people will flip the fuck out when you introduce stuff like that and you don't give them a way to buy it with currency, like... people can't handle that. They really can't. I don't know. I don't know what. Like, I think that would be good, but there's so many people that just can't handle that. Like, they can't handle the idea of RNG rewards. Like,
well, I mean, what if it was tradable, right? So it was like tradable.
Again, I think I'd be very happy with that.
So you could like sell it, right? You could sell it or some shit if there was like a.
There's just certain people that would not, that are just so against that. I don't know that that's enough though to get some guy who's like Johnny Drizzlewood to.
I guess he just grind it out, right? Like grind the reward instead with gold, I guess, instead of getting into the content.
Yeah, and I think like just the idea of him going, well, I've never raided before, and I was never really curious about it. But this infusion looks cool, so I'm going to look into it. I don't see that as working for him. It's a nice perk for retaining the players you already have.
But not for like getting new players in.
Yeah. I don't know if that's going to get Johnny Reba to start raiding.
Yeah.
It's because he's too busy eating glue.
What the fuck, man? This is very PMA, and now what have you done?
Nothing.
Yeah, have you gone to activate?
No, not activate. But why don't they introduce an achievement reward track system like they have for dungeons for strikes? Like, what is it? 8 dungeons and you get
5 gold.
5 gold, right? Why not do that for strikes?
I think that would be good. I think that doing that for raids would also be good. One of the really big issues I have with
like for both of them, actually.
Yeah,
sure.
The big issue I have with raids in particular is that once you've done them for a week, right, you just never do them again, right? Like you log out, and that means that the raid population fucking dies after Monday. Like post Monday,
unless you're Will and Company,
it's not good.
And you do like raid 2 25 times.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, like some people obviously blast the raids out really hard, but most groups tend to just not do it. Yeah, they just don't do anything, right? They tend to just stop, right? Which is a bit of a problem.
The other thing is, and I don't know why they made, maybe you guys can enlighten me. I don't know why they made this decision, but why are EOD strikes not daily?
I don't know.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. The other strikes are daily, and people do them every day. It's just like, fractals or whatever, right? People do fractals every single day, Rex and whatever, right? The dailies.
I think they're trying to avoid FOMO, to be honest. Particularly when they add more strikes, because they're thinking about, imagine the future, right? In the future, there's going to be, 20 strike missions? Like 50 strike missions? Like 2 expansions down the line? And I think they want to prevent the FOMO. I think the one way they can make it daily is make like a daily cap, like a bit like fractals, right? You have like 5 daily fractals to do. Well, 3 daily fractals, right? Like, and then CMs. So if they made it like that, where it was like, okay, you've got 3 daily CMs you can do, and you've got 5 or 6 daily strikes, then you can still make a daily like that. But to me, I think
it just makes sense. It just but we're not at that point yet, right? Like we're not at the FOMO point. And really, whatever the new strikes are, they should be front-loading those with more rewards to entice people to do them.
Inks is right about that. It's sort of like how do you get players to try the new elite specs? You make them really fucking good out of the gate, so that people are willing to go. I'm not as good on my Bladesworn as I am on my Berserker, but it's really good, so I'm gonna play it anyway and learn it. Same thing with the strikes. Like Inks is totally right. They should go, we're gonna juice the rewards so that like people get in the habit of doing them, because once you're in the habit, then you'll keep doing it. Like there'll be an inertia to that.
I don't understand. I just don't understand their mindset on the once a week thing. You have a variety of players who, yes, that's all they have time for, and that's great. But you have a load of other players who have way too much time, like me, who could or would do them every single day if it was profitable. Or even better, you'd have commanders and or group leaders in large guilds like Hardstuck who would do them every single day to help a variety of people out, not just the same static.
Yeah. No, I agree. I really like the idea of this, of a lot of this content being replayable, simply because you recycle the players. Exactly what you settings, right? It means that the LFG would it kind of look a bit more alive, right? Because I think one thing that does discourage people, they look at the LFG, they see like 2 groups, right? For all this content, right? Like this is particularly a problem on NA, obviously very famously a bit of an issue on NA. That the LFG can often appear pretty dead for some of this endgame stuff. So if players hadn't said, right, go again, okay, right, we're just going to blast, we're going to farm hard, we're going to be farming like crazy on all of these strike missions and just grinding gold like that, then it would make it look more alive, right? And that perception is very important. It means that, again, players are going to they're going to have an easier route in because there's going to be more groups to join, right? And, you know, there's always going to be a group up. I don't know. What if they made a repeatable reward system for your static? Like, for you guys, they make something to see how many different accounts you can play with, like pug registration when you raid. You know, ideas like this are pretty interesting. As in, like a new... I think there's something like this in Final Fantasy, if I'm not mistaken, actually. Like, where playing with new players is actually beneficial in some way to you. I'd be very curious to see if something like that would be effective. I wouldn't mind it. So if you, like, kept playing with new players, it would help, right? I don't know, like, so that would, like, just actively reward people. I guess the issue with that is that it's kind of abusable, right? Like, you could, you know, you can do some pretty cheeky stuff and probably boost your own accounts, right? Like, or sell the raid. I mean, you know, there's the problem, right? If you do that, you're buffing raid selling.
Hell yeah.
And ArenaNet tolerate raid selling, but they probably wouldn't want to directly incentivize it with in-game systems. I mean, they technically already do, right, with the Siege Turtle. I mean, if you look at the prices for the Kaineng Strike mission, I mean, Nike's probably farming gold like crazy right now off that goddamn strike mission because...
Actually not selling that.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, really?
I don't know if the demand for that is quite as high as...
Oh.
As it seems.
What's the most thing in high demand in raid selling right
now? Legendary Insights.
Really? It's just like clears, just like boss kills, just as many boss kills as possible. Clears. Yep. Wow. How much is one LI? How much is a full clear cost?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
How many?
A lot.
How many mystic coins do you get after you're done?
We take ectos. Because we don't want to upset the mystic coin market.
Okay. How many ectos do you get?
If I sell, like, if I'm there for a full clear, like 1 through 7, and we have 2 buyers.
Yep. Ooh.
My cut would probably be like 2,000 ectos.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
And wait, how long does that take? Like, I guess, like, maybe like 8 man, so maybe like 3 hours, I guess, approximately with 8 man.
There's a lot of downtime, but
yeah.
But 3 to 4.
2K ectos.
I'm playing the wrong content.
Yeah, that's a lot of ectos.
I guess I'm not really good that I wouldn't be able to do that anyway, but still, jeez.
That's big. That's big gold right there. I need to be, look, you know, that was one of the original ideas we had for funding Hardstuck, was like a raid selling operation. We would, like, half the profit would go to the guild. Then we realized it was probably not the best look to be selling raids.